welcome to our first Zoom conversation about Eden Project North. Thank you for choosing to share your Thursday lunchtime with us. We've got a great panel of people from Eden and also from all of our partners on the project. We have David Harland, our Chief Executive of Eden Project International, Sarah Wroe, the Head of Stakeholder Relations at Lancaster University, Councillor Dr. Erica Lewis, Leader of Lancaster City Council, Andrew Barrow, Construction and Infrastructure Programme Manager at Lancashire County Council, and Sarah Kemp, the CEO of the Lancashire Enterprise Partnership. How we're going to run this is that each one of those panellists will have a few minutes just to give a quick update, and then we'll open up to questions. Thank you to everybody who has sent in a pre-submitted question. We appreciate that. We will call on them first. If you're here, if you've pre-submitted a question, you're here, we'll call on you and you can ask your question in person. And then after that, we will open up the floor if time allows. If you are called to ask a question, if you've pre-submitted one, or when we open up the floor to questions, please raise your hand under the participants menu. It's really important. That's how we can see you and we can unmute you because you are all muted by default. And also please be aware that we are recording the meeting. We'll make it available shortly afterwards. So just be aware, because we're recording, that you may appear in the video. So if anybody isn't comfortable with that, please switch your video off. You're still able to participate in the meeting and listen to what's going on. Okay, so I'm gonna, without any further ado, I'm gonna pass over to David Harland, Chief Executive of Eden Project International, who's gonna give an update from an Eden perspective. David.
Great, thank you, Ben, and I'm hoping that you're all hearing me there. So, really lovely to see so many smiling faces there, and I suspect many in the northwest. Of course, we're, won't have escaped anyone's attention that we're in the pandemic, and we would rather be doing this in person and sort of building on the conversations that we started earlier in the year and last year. But we felt this was, if you like, the way to move forward. And I thought, just to start us off, I would just share a couple of images and a couple of thoughts from from the things that we've been doing over the last few months. And I'm hoping that you are all seeing my screen. Perhaps, Ben, you would just give me a nod. Yes, you are. Marvelous. So, and you're all recognized by now these, these mussel shells that we've been looking at. And actually, although we may have been a little bit quiet recently, we've been far from quiet behind the scenes. We've been doing a lot of work in terms of the design process and in terms of trying to raise the money for this project. And I'll come back to both those points shortly. And just a reminder, what we're trying to do is we're building here on Morecambe's very, very rich history. Your wonderful strapline here of beauty surrounds and health abounds was certainly not lost on us. And we're wondering whether or not we can, as an environmental charity, and really bring to life, and as it says here, perhaps nature can continue to astound. We're doing this for a number of reasons. We were inspired by Morecambe. It's important to us that it's in Morecambe, with that wonderful bay that you have out there, which is inspirational. But it's fair to say that, in line with many British seaside resorts, there are bits of the town that perhaps have seen better days. And we often come back to this picture that you see on the screen there, which is a bit of graffiti that one of our team found back in 2017 when we were first up there, which was about dreaming big, which, it is something that certainly we've done at Eden, as you know, with our pit here in Cornwall. And one of the reasons that we do that is that we were really surprised, and this is, I'm going to flash this up really briefly, but you can find all of this stuff either on our website or, in fact, in this case, these are national statistics, was that the level of economic deprivation, if you like, was quite a lot deeper than we expected in certain areas, and we felt that there was a real way that we wanted to tackle this from the early part of the project. And not only that actually has an impact then on health and well-being, and there was some fairly difficult statistics in here about how that affects productivity, how it affects the health of the people that live there. So we really had this sort of health and well-being element in from very early doors, alongside things like the Health Innovation Campus developments at Lancaster University and so on. And as you know, some of you will have been engaged in this. We had these big community engagement sessions. More than 2,500 people came along to them. Who muted me? So I just got muted then. Anyway, I'll keep going. We had many people come along to the engagement, people saying that this was something that they really wanted. And what really came out loud was that actually this is about hope, this is about aspiration. And it's also a little bit like for Ben, who you just heard talking, who's a local boy down in Cornwall like me, that actually Cornwall, back when we were growing up, was going to be a place that you left if you wanted to do something in your life. And we want to avoid that within the region here with Morecambe as well, and really give people a sense of hope and optimism. So that then leads us into this very simple, 3 circles here. What we're really trying to do here is we're building on that fabulous natural resource, building on what's there in the town. And if you like, this is the intersection of healthy people within a sort of healthy environment, and all of the elements that you see there. So if you want the more wordy version, why does Eden Project North work? What's the vision? Well, yes, this ticks a lot of government agenda points. This is about levelling up that everyone talks about. This is about having a long-term plan around education. This is about green collar jobs, seems to be the latest phrase, and so on. And this does meet a lot of both government and community aspirations. And I think the thing to realise here that's so exciting for us is that in Cornwall 20 years ago, nobody had done this before. There wasn't an Eden project at that point. Here in Morecambe, this will be the second Eden that we do, and we won't have to post fit a lot of this stuff. We're able to build in our educational aspirations. We're able to build in a lot of the really good stuff, the thing that's made us a part of the fabric of Cornwall from the very start, if you like, part of the cultural glue. And that's incredibly exciting from our side to not have to do that later. And then just, you've probably seen some of these things before, but just to give you a sort of sense of the layout there in the town. This is obviously, if you've been to Eden in Cornwall, very different, because we're not in an urban location, but we are excited here to start to bring to life what is actually going to be happening within the biomes, if you like, within the mussel shells there. And they've got these names. I don't think we've talked about these before, but the idea that you can bring to life above the things that are going on above the bay, the things that are going on below the bay. And we're very excited. I think the next time we talk, we'll have a bit more content because there's been a huge amount of development behind the scenes about what's actually in there. And if you've been to Eden Cornwall, if you like, the above the bay experience is a little bit like the Mediterranean, but only a little bit like it. The below the bay experience is brand new for Morecambe. There is nothing like it within the Eden family already. There's, in fact, we think nothing like it anywhere else in the UK, possibly the world, because of the types of experience that we're developing. So that was just to whet your appetite. We could talk about the actual project for ages, but the whole purpose of today is a quick intro from all of us, from the panelists, and then really to hear from all of you that are online there. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over the baton to Erica from Lancaster and Morecambe City Council. Erica, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dave. Apologies, I think my phone rang through the call earlier. The BBC is looking for me, but hopefully they won't call back for a minute or two. I'm really excited about being here because Eden is an amazing prospect for not just Morecambe and the Lancaster district, but of course for the whole of the Bay and for the region more widely. And I think it's been really fortunate for the council, in terms of partnering with Eden, that we actually share a whole lot of priorities and values. So Eden, as an educational charity, is committed to educating people about the climate and the climate emergency that we're facing, and that is work that the City Council is also deeply committed to. We also share commitments around building a sustainable and strong local economy, bringing in good, well-paid jobs and giving people opportunities to learn vital new green skills. And of course, it's an amazing tourism draw for Morecambe, and of course paired with the Lake District just up the road, there is the potential to create a real tourism centre here and to build on the shared strengths across Lancaster, South Lakeland and Barrow in terms of a visitor economy and sustainable jobs in a visitor economy. So we're very excited that the project keeps progressing even in difficult times, and I very much look forward to seeing building commence in the not too distant future. Thank you.
Great. I think, Erica, thank you for that. I think we're going to then hand over to the County Council and to Andrew Barrow, if that's okay.
Thank you, David, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andrew Barrow, and I help the County Council deliver construction and infrastructure projects. And if I could start with a really big thank you to you all for the invitation to talk about Eden Project North today. I think on behalf of us all, we immediately recognised the transformation that an Eden would have for us. Who wouldn't, really? But it's only been through working with our Eden family closely over quite some time, some in Cornwall, some in Morecambe, more recently over Skype and Zoom and Teams, that it's begun to dawn on us just what it will mean for our part of the world and how lucky we are to be working with such a great group of people. We've talked about the virus, the pandemic, and dealing with it has been very challenging. But I think, if anything, it's made us collectively more determined to make Eden happen for us. It will be a phenomenally motivating springboard for us all. I think the delivery of projects like this really needs a genuine partnership of truly committed organisations, teams and the people within them. The county, the city, the university and the enterprise partnership are all doing our level best to work together to play to our strengths as we move forwards. A role for us over the recent past has been very much behind the scenes, and that's making the strongest possible case that we can to government, to persuade government to invest and deliver this for us, help us deliver this. So where we are now, the case is in, government are considering it probably as we speak. And we're currently working to develop the project, to push it forward in terms of putting together a planning application, which we all hope will be submitted towards the summer next year. And I think, David, that's my whistle-stop tour through my thoughts.
Thank you, Andrew, and the support that actually we've had from all our partners has been immense. And I forgot to say, actually, just before I hand over to Sarah Kemp from the Lancashire LEP, that we have submitted a business case to the government, as I think you probably all know, that requests 70 million of the 125 million pounds for the project. We know it's been well received, and I think we welcome yesterday's announcement about levelling up monies and various other parts that the government are talking about. Our target was always the budget for the spring, as opposed to this comprehensive spending review, which only looks forward a year. And what we're doing between then and now is as exactly as Andrew said, and thank you for being a great team player and reminding me subtly, which is that we're getting the planning application ready so that it can be submitted in the spring. So I will now hand over, if that's okay, to Sarah Kemp, who's the Chief Executive of the Lancashire LEP, and I'm hoping, Sarah, the floor is yours now.
Thank you, David, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. For those of you who don't know, the Lancashire Local Enterprise Partnership is a partnership between the public and the private sector, whose remit is around setting economic strategy for the county and for supporting businesses to grow in a sustainable and competitive way, and most importantly, to create jobs. So we're really proud to be supporting this initiative. The LEP has put funds towards the development of the business case and hoping that we can take this together with partners across the line and secure planning consent and government funding to make this happen, make it a reality. And we genuinely believe that this is a one in a generation opportunity. And in terms of what it means from a regeneration and a transformative and restorative impact on Morecambe, it's very important. It will create a lot of jobs, jobs across a wide sphere of interest around conservation, around education, hospitality, horticulture, and so on. People working both at the location, but also in the supply chain. So, this is very kind of important that the local supply chain is part of this project, and Eden will develop that, particularly around food and drink and agriculture and horticulture, and that in itself will create jobs and more work for local businesses. So there's a lot we could say about this, but Eric has mentioned the impact on tourism, which is very important. Eden's an international brand, a brand that's loved and trusted. It's a place that many people travel to go and visit the Eden project in Cornwall, just to visit that project. And we think it'd be a fantastic opportunity for us to grow the tourism business within Lancashire, and particularly important at the moment as we're trying to recover from COVID. And our hospitality businesses and our tourism and leisure sector, is on its knees at the moment and really needs the hope of a project like this to regenerate that particular industry sector. So very excited about it, very excited about the conservation values, the education elements of this, the job creation, what it means for our businesses, our supply chains, our visitors, and we're very much happy to be part of the partnership team that's working together to deliver this. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Sarah, and also thank you to you for all of the support and getting us to this phase. And then the final panelist and speaker we've got is Sarah Wroe from Lancaster University, who I can't see on my screen, but I'm hoping is going to pop up shortly. And Lancaster University have been with us literally from day one. It's actually, if you like, their fault that we're even here, because they made the original call to us to say they really thought that there could be something interesting for us. And well, look where we are now. So Sarah, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Dave. And it's an absolute pleasure to be joining you today on behalf of Lancaster University, because like you say, we have been there from the beginning, which has been amazing. But also as one of the 4 founding partners, obviously, we've all been working together really closely to really try and get this over the line and make it happen. So my role at Lancaster University is Head of Stakeholder Relations, and I work with our partners and with our communities. And that's to really think about how we can harness our resources and our research and our teaching to really help to generate that economic growth and improve health and well-being. And the thing is, the Eden Project North, of course, is a catalyst for all of those things. And it really does run through everything we do as a university, so through our research and our teaching and our engagement with our partners and our communities. I've not been in from the beginning, but I've been involved for the last 2 years. And the first involvement was actually to bring together colleagues from across the university to really explore the opportunities that Eden Project North presents, both for our research and teaching, but actually also how we do work with our partners and our communities. And we're already seeing some research coming through. We've got the Future Places Research Centre, which is come together with 26 external partners, including Eden Project and Lancaster City Council. And that's about reimagining how we live and the places that we live in. And we'll be exploring the themes of Eden Project North as we help to shape its development and think about the natural and the built environment. And we're also thinking about education. Professor Robert Barrett joined Lancaster University earlier this year as a joint Eden Lancaster University appointment, and he's working with Lancaster and Morecambe College and primary and secondary schools across the area to develop the Morecambe Bay curriculum, which really looks at, which is going to be rooted in the Bay, and we'll look at education from birth through to postgraduate study. And we'll really think about the skills and knowledge that people will need to have jobs both at Eden Project North and with employers. So again, really very much about boosting that employability and regeneration. And we've also got a wide range of funded projects around sustainability, working with SMEs to develop clean and sustainable growth. So there are so many ways in which we can work together with our partners and with Eden Project North to really help to harness those benefits that everybody's already talked about, and I won't talk about them again because I'd be a stuck record then. So thanks very much.
Sarah, thank you. That's really great. And so that I think that's it in terms of the panelists talking. Ben, I think you are going to facilitate this discussion, aren't you?
Yeah. So thank you, David, and thank you, Erica, Andrew, Sarah, and Sarah as well. Great to hear from you all. So we've had, as I said before, we are going to make our way through the questions that we've had pre-submitted first, and then if time allows after that, we'll open up the floor. So without any further ado, the first question comes from Jim Grisenthwaite. Jim, are you able to put your hand up so we can, there we go. Tom, if you wouldn't mind unmuting Jim there. It's always the technology, isn't it?
There we go.
There we go. Jim, what's your question, please?
Well, can I just say, before I ask the question, that I think the project has given a stimulus to thinking across a very wide area of the Northwest, not just to Morecambe and Lancaster. I'm a town councillor with Carnforth Town Council, and the announcement that the project might come to Morecambe was a great, it was a stimulus to our thinking and to our discussions. So my question is, how best can towns and communities like Carnforth, which is in the Morecambe hinterland, get involved in the development of the Eden Project North?
Great question, Jim. I'll pick that one up perhaps first. You know, as I think I said in the intro, in a funny sense, it's chance on one level that it's in Morecambe, on another level that it's great, because we you know, without doing disservice to Morecambe, which we love, actually this is about, you know, the whole region. And you know what we've seen in Cornwall, and as I say, trying to do this from the very start, is by building supply chains, by becoming, if you like, part of the fabric of what's actually happening in the whole area. We become you know, one of a range of different you know, ways that people can access the area. You know, what we've seen in the 20 years at Eden in Cornwall is a sort of building of additional both infrastructure, but also things for people to do, so that they actually, you know, start to come and stay in the area for longer. And the way that you get really sort of really deep economic and social change is actually by persuading people to come and stay. So you get to, you know, you get hotels, you know, you get restaurants and, you know, retail, and the whole thing just starts to sort of come out from that catalyst. And so I think with Carnforth, I mean, you're literally a stone's throw, aren't you?
Exactly, yeah.
And everyone comes down there, you know, wants to stand there and do, it's brief encounter, isn't it? I've done it myself, you know, down the road. That's got to be part of a range of offers, the same as getting around, you know, around on the train line to Barrow and beyond is part of that for us as well. So we're very focused on that. Love to talk to your colleagues on the town council as well. So I hope that gives you a sense.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. So next questions we have a couple of questions on transport. Is Jane Hull here? And if she is and would like to ask a question, maybe perhaps she could raise her hand. Jane, are you in the room?
Don't think she's here, Ben.
Okay, thanks, Tom. So Jane, so I'll ask these questions. These were submitted beforehand. So Jane Hull asks, as a resident of Morecambe, I feel this project is a must for our town. However, I think a major concern will be the inevitable increase in traffic. Does the project have any plans to deal with this increase? Will you implement, for example, a park and ride scheme, extra parking spaces, or increase the number of trains coming into the town? And similarly, from David Stocker, he also asked a question on transport, so we'll tackle them together if that's okay. David says, eco-friendliness is at the heart of Eden, but with COVID, people are deserting public transport in droves, and there's no knowing how long this will last. Are you preparing for large numbers of people driving to the venue and the increased carbon footprint which that entails, or do you have some cunning plan around to get around this?
Well, perhaps if it's okay, I'll go first, and then it may well be that Eric or Andrew want to come in. Particularly, I know Andrew's done a lot of work on this. So it doesn't matter where we work in the world, from China to Australia to to America, and then to Morecambe. Everybody always wants to talk about transport and parking, and it's absolutely right that they do. And so in the very early part of our studies of our feasibility, we focused a great deal on this because we were conscious of the urban location, which is actually a fantastic opportunity, but we cannot afford to clog up Morecambe and make it unlivable for everyone, all of you. So we were very conscious of that from the beginning. So to the first question rather than the second, we've done a lot of work, and we will share it in the public domain. Everything that we're going to do, we'll put out there. Analyzes exactly how the transport would flow. We obviously are going to encourage people, like we do in Cornwall, and probably more so because you've got a train line right there, to use sustainable transport methods. There is a park and ride, which is underutilized in terms of its capacity at the moment, and there's a variety of different solutions. I should say that the biggest concern that our trust that ultimately own the Eden project have at the moment is how we deal with this issue, and they are seeking the same reassurance as the people who've asked the question as well, and it's the challenge internally. And we have got some really we have got a few wacky solutions. I'm not sure they're going to work in the timeline, but we are really focused to make sure that we don't clog things up, as I say, and that we do the right thing. And the most important thing to realize in this is that this is a timed ticket entry system. And when we talk in the public domain about 750,000 or 1 million people turning up, all of us, we can't help it. We all imagine all of those people turning up at the same time. You just cannot help yourself. I do it exactly the same. What we're talking about here is 3,000 people on any one day at a maximum level, maybe 3,500. If you do them at 3.2 people per car, even if they all came by car, you can do the maths that gets you back to that being quite a low volume. We just have to make sure that we can deal with them appropriately with the existing infrastructure. Andrew, I don't know if you wanted to add to that, or perhaps Erica?
If I could, just because it appears to be at the intersection of today's messages, obviously, along with Dave and everybody else, we're very committed to the idea that it shouldn't bring extra cars into the centre of Morecambe, that we want to encourage active travel. We've been having conversations with Network Rail and the rail companies and all of those things about trying to, and Stagecoach, and trying to make sure that there are ways in, walking, cycling, all of those options, as well as making sure that for people who need to be able to drive to the venue for accessibility reasons, that there'll still be the disability access that there should be. Part of the question was about kind of people being warned off public transport at the moment because of COVID. There is light at the end of the tunnel on COVID. The information, I know we're having a bad day today in Lancaster, but the information about vaccines is really hopeful. While Eden is shovel ready and we are all raring to go, the vaccine and the impact of the vaccine will have arrived before Eden opens. And so, but the point at which Eden opens, the current concerns that there are around public transport and things like that will have eased. So I think it's important to remember that right now, while we're not encouraging people to use public transport unnecessarily, and of course venues like Eden in the current situation in Lancaster wouldn't be allowed to be open, but COVID will pass, the vaccines will come, and then we will go back to encouraging people to walk and to cycle and to use public transport again. And so all the really hard work that's been done by Eden and the County Council and the transport companies and things like that will be effective in making sure that people can come to Eden without adding a dramatic burden in cars to our roads or increasing its carbon footprint. Andrew, did you want to add anything from the county's perspective?
Yes, if I may, ever so briefly. I think as we've been doing our case making and understanding how we can deliver an Eden, it is an absolute ambition of ours that we are seen as providing progressive, healthy transport for the new facility. We want it to be clean, smooth, and dare I say, fun as well. It has to be reliable. And one of the things that we have taken a great deal of learning from, particularly recently, has been the way in which our Eden family in Cornwall have introduced time ticketing, so that when potential customers want to visit the facility, we will know exactly what time they will be delivering. There'll be a predictability, a certainty of flow of customers. And to test out our thinking, we've had numerous conversations with bus operators in respect of park and ride. There's the underused facility adjacent to junction 34 at the top of the gateway. Bus operators have a real appetite to provide buses, and they're not talking in the old language of diesel-y things. We're talking about clean electric, we're talking about hydrogen, really good progressive stuff, and there seems to be a strong appetite to be able to deliver it.
Yes, I'm enjoying the chat bar. I don't know if others are doing it, because we've gone from boats to hovercrafts to submarines as you were talking, Andrew. You obviously inspired something, you and Erica. So yes, the original idea, and don't get our founder Tim Smith started on hovercrafts and things out in the bay, because that was one of his original things. So you never know, the Eden hovercraft may yet come.
Thank you, David, Andrew, and Erica. Moving on to the next question. So Dr. Alan Morris, is Dr. Morris in the room? Just raise your hand if you are and we can unmute you. If not, I can ask the question on your behalf. It doesn't look like it. So Dr. Morris asks, how will you ensure 80% of the scheme is procured from local businesses? I guess that's 80% of supplies.
Yeah. So this is something that we're particularly proud of, and I may just bring Sarah in as well, because what we had to do in Cornwall, as you may have heard us say before, was actually to create those supply chains, because they didn't exist to supply the size of organisation that we were. So we invested, made sure that people had certainty of contract, so that they themselves could invest, i.e. the contracts were longer, and we will in fact pay more if people can demonstrate why it costs more to source things locally. So there's a whole project set up, and we're bringing all of that thinking and all of that work with us to this site. You know, this doesn't happen by chance. This is a huge undertaking to make sure that we can do it, and it starts, you know, from now. Of course, I'm down here in Cornwall at the moment, as is Ben. We would much rather be there with you guys having this conversation, but actually using firms from a very wide area and knowing what it is that we're trying to do is really important. Being part, if you like, of the development of the Northwest, and in being part of the LEP's plans, being part of you know, the investment plans that people have, to allow them to be, if you like, I don't know, Eden ready is a phrase that I've seen. So we are, you know, in separate sessions of this, we talk to the Chamber of Commerce and to businesses across the region, and we'll continue to do that to make sure that everyone's got the opportunities that I think people want. I don't know, Sarah, if you wanted to add anything to that thinking.
Yes, I mean, I remember, David, you sharing with us that when Eden in Cornwall was first established, in terms of local produce, there were no producers producing anywhere near enough tomatoes for Eden Project or enough cheese for Eden Project. So, you know, one of the exciting things about this project is that you will need to build those supply chains up locally very quickly. And agricultural production in the Northwest is worth over £2 billion annually, and other agricultural activities generate about £80 million. So Lancashire is one of the few counties in the country that, in terms of the quantum of food that's produced and the range of food, it's one of the few counties that could actually feed itself. And the Grade 1 land in West Lancashire produces a huge range of vegetables, salad crops, top fruit, cereals for bread making, maltsters for brewing, and so on. And it's got some of the largest milk fields in the country, supplying milk for the liquid market, manufacturing to cheese, and so on. So I think there's huge opportunities here from a supply chain perspective. And the LEP has established a sector group for food and agriculture, which has business leaders, farmers, producers, retailers together, who are ready and engaged and want to work very closely with Eden Project in terms of developing the supply chains that Eden will need from a hospitalities perspective. And the only thing that I would add is, as first time visitor to Eden in Cornwall many years ago, the thing that I loved most about the Eden project at the time was, the hospitality provision was all wholesome local produce. One of the few destinations I could go to with my children and say, you can pick anything you want to eat, because it was good for them. So I think lots of opportunities for the supply chain. I think the businesses in the food and agriculture supply chain of Lancashire really keen to get engaged with Eden in this project. And I know Eden will be very much focused on looking for local supply to meet their need as they get established.
It's black stick blue all the way, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the so great. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, David. Next question comes from Susie Carter. Susie, would you mind, if you want to ask it, if you could raise your hand for us? Oh, there you are. Well, you're on the first screen. There you go. Susie, what's your question?
Hi. I'm just wondering, with regards to SME, social enterprises, startups, will there be funding for those? And if so, will that come from Eden's project fund, or is it collaborative organisations? Obviously, Sarah, been listening to you eagerly today. I'm just keen to learn about the opportunities for people that are looking to, maybe start up business in the local area.
Sarah, do you want to go? Yeah.
Yes, I mean the money that the LEP's put to the project at the moment has been very much around what they need to do in terms of developing the project itself, as a construction project. But there's a whole plethora of business support projects that are out there that are there to support startup of businesses, growth of businesses. At the moment, the sort of the provision around businesses is very reactive to the impact of COVID. But we're about to engage with government around UK shared prosperity funds, which are the funds that government always promised to replace the loss of the European regional development funding as a consequence of Brexit. So we're still to enter into those conversations. But the LEP we're really keen that actually part of that economic growth, that we're setting the priorities that are most important. And I certainly know that all the partners sitting around the table see the Eden project as being a very significant economic priority. So to the extent that we can support and facilitate working between people who are wanting to set up businesses, people who are already running businesses, how do they become part of the supply chain of Eden? How do they, sometimes it's not even part of the supply chain of Eden, it's the wider indirect benefits in terms of the impact that it's going to have for Morecambe and the wider area. How do you capitalise on that? Where do you find the skills that you need to recruit? Where do you get the finance from to support your businesses? Really happy to talk to anybody about that. And our front door is called Boost, which is the local growth hub.
Sorry, what's that again?
It's called Boost, which is the local growth hub. Yeah, BOOST.
Yep. I'll be in touch with you as soon as this is over.
But by all means, it's an open invitation. If you want to contact me directly, really happy to put you in touch with the right people. But
wonderful.
Lots of support out there through the partners, through Boost, and we'll help to signpost you to the right place depending on what you're trying to do.
That would be fantastic, because I've recently returned to Morecambe. Well, in the last 2 years, I've been living in Australia and China, and I come from a global sourcing background, so I'm really keen to try and utilise my experience and skills to make a positive difference to the local area. So that would be fantastic, Sarah. Thank you very much.
Great to hear. Thank you, Susie.
Thank you.
And can I just add to that, actually, from a Lancaster University perspective? And of course, Sarah Kemp just touched on the Boost programme, for example, as one of those mechanisms. The university has European regional development funding, as it now is, and obviously we hope successor funding, which is about supporting SMEs to develop their businesses and startups, and that's across a whole range of areas, including around clean and sustainable growth. So I'm sure Sarah Kemp's team will point you in the direction, but we've also got a lot of resources at the university, which I think we can bring to bear as part of this as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's all I would add, Susie, to both. What you've obviously got to be called Sarah to answer this question, but if you like, we see ourselves a little bit like a sort of big brother, under which people can shelter to try and get these things going. And I think with Lancaster University, there we don't have the joy of a major player on our doorstep with us, a very successful one either here. we didn't. We now do, because Founders University has come in. But I think the fact that you've got those two things already in place along with the LEP is really positive. So if we can nail down the capital monies and create that umbrella and that shelter, suddenly everybody gets confidence, and you can just see the whole thing just starting to, I don't know what the metaphor is, roll down the hill. That might be the wrong metaphor. You know what I'm trying to say.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Susie, for your question. The final pre-submitted question we have comes from Richard Eccles. Richard, are you here? And would you mind raising your hand if you'd like to ask your question? Oh, there you are, Richard. Tom, if you wouldn't mind unmuting Richard. Hi, Richard. What's your question?
Hi there. Yeah, thank you. This is our first engagement with the Eden Project, so it's really great for this. I'm from Growing Well, which is a mental health charity in Kendal and organic growing enterprise. So my question's about your green social prescribing programme, which I've seen in Eden, Cornwall. Do you have any plans to incorporate therapeutic horticulture in Eden Project North?
So, well, look, thanks for highlighting that, Richard. And it's a programme that we're really proud of, along with the People and Gardens programme that we have at our nurseries here, which are 6 miles from the site. And the short answer is yes. In what guise, we don't yet know. But building on what we've got here and using the infrastructure of the team that are focused on it, that whole team exists not just for Cornwall, but to do that type of activity across the country. And you may know we've got a whole communities team called which is called Eden Project Communities. Took a long time coming up with that name, and I think the best thing I can do, Richard, is to put you in touch with them, and in particular 2 people in the team, which are Dan James and Juliet Rose on the social prescribing side, and just start those conversations, just see where they're going to go, because they're going to take a little bit of a time to set up, but we would love to do it. We'd really love to get involved in those sort of things.
Fantastic. Thank you, David.
Pleasure.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Richard, for your question. That was the last one of our pre-submitted questions. So if you would like to ask something, please put your hand up. I'm going to go to Daniel Whelan first, because he's been sitting there with his hand up for practically the entire meeting. So it'd be good to hear what he's got to say. Thank you for your patience, Daniel. Tom, if you wouldn't mind unmuting Daniel for me, please. Hi, Daniel. Hi. What's your question?
Hi, thanks very much. Yeah, my question is probably slightly more boring. I'm a journalist from Place Northwest. I just wanted to ask about the price of the project. So previously we were reporting that it was £85 million project, but obviously now it's up to 120. I'm just wondering why the jump, and in light of the spending review yesterday, does that change Eden Project's approach to getting the funding from government in light of the £4 billion levelling up fund that was announced yesterday?
Thanks, Daniel. So the change in the number, if you like, is not really much of a change. It's somewhat about the basis that it was disclosed. So what's in and what's not. We've done a lot of work in the last year to firm up exactly what it's going to cost to deliver the project. So it certainly won't be more than the number that you're now quoting, which is obviously important in terms of raising investment and so on. I mean, in terms of the government's announcements and so on, what we recognise here, and I think is recognised as well by not just the strategic partners who are represented here, but also through conversations with government, is that this is precisely the sort of scheme that is required to drive the levelling up agenda, to drive jobs, to drive, if you like, the green economy. And I think it's for all of us actually to tell people that this is the sort of things that we want, and that these are the types of communities that we want to have coming out of the pandemic, and how we, the slogans are Build Back Better, aren't they, and all that sort of stuff. Irrelevant of the slogans, actually, I think this has given us all a chance to say we do want to do things slightly differently. And we're not saying, by the way, that an Eden is the solution to everything. We're far from saying that, but we're saying it's one of the ways that the government could demonstrate its commitment to levelling up, its commitment to the green economy. And that case is being made very, very loudly by not just by us, but by many people. And I hope people on this call will make that case as well and start to talk about it. So in terms of the specifics of the levelling up money yesterday, it's interesting. we welcome it. We've got to get into the detail of it. There's plenty of ways of spending the money. Do I think, and I've seen a question on the chat as well, what do we think the timing is? We're aiming for the budget next year. Have we got, and by the way, 70 million of 125 still means that we've got to raise 55. And so we're very, very focused on that. And you'll see some more information on that coming out over the next couple of months, because we think there's a really exciting way of involving people in the northwest and in the north of England in doing that, and focusing, making sure that that money is actually doing good as well. So impact investors and so on. So more to follow, Daniel, but that gives you a sense.
Thank you.
Dave, thanks, Daniel. Next, Councillor Lizzie Collins has got a hand up. Lizzie, would you like to ask your question? Tom, if you could unmute for us.
Hi, yes. I am the County Councillor for Lancaster East, and I now live in Heysham. One of the things that is concerning me, and I'm very excited about Eden as a whole, but one of the things that's concerning me is the knock-on impact on our local communities in terms of cost of housing and cost of living. I think the last thing that anyone wants to see is local people being priced out the area. So I was wondering if there'd already been any work on that or any thinking about that, and how we make sure that Morecambe and the surrounding area stays affordable and accessible for the people who are already here. Thanks.
Sure. I think, Erica, do you want to pick that one up first?
Sure. So thank you for the question, Lizzie, and I know that you and I have discussed this previously. So I guess as the City Council and with our responsibilities for housing, we are very aware of this risk. There is an interesting challenge that in terms of exercising planning controls, you actually have to be able to demonstrate the problem has happened. The system doesn't allow you to take a proactive response. But part of what the City Council is working on in terms of its broader housing plans is about increasing the amount of property that we build and own in the area, and thus being a model landlord, and using that as a way to make sure that local residents don't get priced out of their community. We are very aware of the risk, and we're very keen to do all we can to make sure that people who are born and bred in that area, people who have long associations, can very much afford to stay.
Thank you, Erica, and thanks for the question as well. Next, a friendly face, someone we recognise from the Eden Project, Tracy Greer. Tom, if you wouldn't mind unmuting Tracy. Tracy, what's your question, please?
Hi guys. So as you said, as somebody who's worked for Eden Project Cornwall and now living in the Northwest, I just was interested in what the relationship will be between the two sites with regards to things like joint projects and joint initiatives like sessions, etc., joint community projects, and will Eden Project North benefit from those types of initiatives too?
Well, Tracy, lovely to see you. It's been a while.
Indeed, it has.
Well, look, the answer is yes. It's part of the same family. So this is all, if you like, Eden in Morecambe, the same as Eden in Cornwall, will be owned by the Eden Trust, the charitable bit of our operation. And it won't surprise you to learn that actually, and I answered the question from Richard just now about social prescribing. In the same way, things like the sessions, which for those that don't know are the music gigs that we do here. The things that we do, we are aiming to export as much of it that is appropriate to export as we can. So we have to get the balance here. And I liken this a little bit. Do you remember that they used to have those adverts with Intel inside? Used to flash into their computers. And this, if you like, is Eden Ops on the inside, and some of the best of Eden. But that's not to say that this hasn't got a load of new stuff, because actually the role of Morecambe for us is about driving the mission out there. It's about, if you like, having a marine Eden, and it will be part of the sisterhood of sites that we're creating around the world, sharing content, but it will have its own place as well. So it's going to do some really special stuff that will only be done in Morecambe, that you'll only be able to see there. So a bit of everything, but good to see you.
Great, thanks guys, really exciting.
Thank you, Tracy. Thanks, David. Okay, so we have 5 minutes left. I see a few people have their hands up. We'll try and get to everyone. So we have Catherine, Rebecca, then Alistair. Tom, if you wouldn't mind unmuting Catherine. Catherine Holliston, what's your question to the panel, please?
At the risk of bringing it back to transport planning, it's brilliant to hear about the bus arrangements and discussions that have been going on. I'm the Community Rail Partnership Officer for the Leeds to Morecambe line. We've seen some extraordinary headlines coming out in the past couple of months about electrification, all sorts of aspirations. However, working with Northern, I'm aware of the timescales of railway projects, specifically upgrades to the network. I'm aware of the complications. We actually have 4 different depots of staff that run the trains along the branch, each with different types of units that they can take. It would be lovely to have some more discussion with whoever's doing the transport planning at this point to make sure the railway is ready to assist with that. Well,
the short answer is yes, please. And I think we'd like to be in the situation where we give the people on the railway a bit of a headache that they have to do some of these things that you've just talked about. And my colleague Tim Neri is on the line somewhere. I'm not going to bring him in, but he is, responsible for doing a lot of this work. And I suspect he's just noted down your name, Catherine, and will hope to get hold of you. So if you find him in the chat bar, do make contact. So that was Tim Neri, Narey. And because we would really like to have more in terms of rail. And I see that Andrew has come off mute, which says to me he wants to say something.
Thank you, David. No, Catherine, it was just to agree with all that you've said there. We've had outline conversations as part of our transport strategy, and if the County Council could be part of that conversation with you and Tim, we'd be very much welcoming that.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew and David. Thank you, Catherine, for your question. Go quickly to Rebecca Moore, if that's okay. Rebecca, when you're unmuted, please pose your question.
Hi, basically I'm a master's student. I've just done 4 years of marine biology and I live in Morecambe. I was wondering what's the best way for me to try and get involved with the Eden project, because ideally, I've just spent 4 or 5 years working towards what you're all working towards as well, and I'd like to be involved. So what's the best way to sort of contact you and kind of work out how I can be involved with you? And also I'm about to start a dissertation project in January, and I'd like to ideally do it on the Eden project, because obviously this is going to be a big part of Morecambe and all our local lives. So I was wondering if there's anyone able to perhaps contact me and be able to talk to me about things like that, if there's any projects that you'd like doing or anything.
Thank you, Rebecca. Yes, and yes to all of those. We'd love to hear from you. Why don't you drop me a line first off, and I'll direct you to the right person. Would love a further conversation, because one of our team is also a marine biologist already in here, and they're starting to get very excited about the potential to bring to life what's out there in the bay, and all of the things that you will know, but many of us don't. So we'd love to do that. So drop me a line. It's very simple. It's dharland@edenproject.com, and we go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Dave. Go next to Alistair Eagles, please. Alistair, when you're unmuted, please let us know what your question is.
Hi, sorry, not a question at all. Just from a kind of local perspective, sorry, I'm Chief Exec of Sea Truck Ferries down at Heysham Harbour, also involved with the local Chamber of Commerce. I just wanted to kind of re-emphasise the huge level of local support there is for this project, to thank the Eden team for all their hard work. Yes, there are some questions and some things that we need answers to, but please do not leave this meeting thinking there's anything other than a massive amount of support locally for this. And can everyone on the call please, get involved, sign the petitions, and when you see naysayers on Facebook or in the street saying Eden will never happen, please tell them that it will, because it will, and we'll make it happen. So thank you very much to everyone.
Thanks, Alistair, and good to thanks for your comment. Good to see you. And yes, it will happen by hook or by crook. We are going to make this happen, because do you know what? One of the really amazing things is, I don't know what you guys have done to the rest of the world, but wherever Tim Smith and I go, and that can be as far flung as Australia, New Zealand, people ask us about Morecambe, which is rather lovely. So there's something in the water. So we must make sure that we do this. Thanks, Alistair.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks, Alistair. Right, final question. We're just coming up to our end of our allotted hour. David Jones, please play us out with your question.
Hi, I've just recently moved to Bear in Morecambe in the last 6 weeks, and I just want to say it is a wonderful place to live. And my question is more towards when the Eden project is delivered. One thing I think which is really missing, which I think used to be years ago, are there plans to actually have eventually educational sort of boat trips out onto the bay to look at the marine life, look at the environment? Because I think it is such a tragedy. I look across this lovely bay every morning when I walk on the prom, and it'd be so lovely to actually go out there and see it. I know it's a bit later than the project itself, but are there any type of plans for that to happen?
Well, definitely in spirit, David. Because the whole project was inspired by exactly what you just described, and a few of us have done the wonderful walk with Cedric and his new replacement, which is just wonderful. And I think the short answer again is yes, and we'd love to work with people. Funnily enough, Alistair, who you just talked about, he runs ferries, but they're a bit of a different scale to the boats that you're talking about. But we must do this, and we must bring to life, how amazing it is that what's actually happening every 6 hours within that bay, and how it affects our lives. So if you like, this project has got the nickname internally with us of being the project of the rhythm of life. Because the lunar cycles and the tidal cycles and how that impacts on our biorhythms and so on is a fascination actually for us and for the team here. So we must do that. And if you look very carefully in the drawing that are out there, there's a few little things that hint at how we might get out onto the bay. And I'm hoping that Rebecca, that asked that question, as a marine biologist, might lead a few tours. So thank you for that final question. It's a great one. So we look forward to seeing you then.
Thank you. Brilliant.
Thank you, David. Thanks, Dave, Harland as well. That's the final question we have time for, I'm afraid. I know there's a lot going on in the chat, which we haven't had a chance to get to, but I think it's quite encouraging, and I hope the panel agree with me that we are seeing so much engagement and so much interest and passion in what we're doing, and people really feel, well, we're getting the sense that people really feel like there's something they want to be involved in and help shape. So thank you so much for your participation this afternoon. I don't know whether anyone from the panel, Dave's putting his hand up, wants to give any final remarks.
The final thing I wanted to say was one to just thank our colleagues on the panel. Thank you for being there and being so supportive and great answers as ever. What I did want to say is that Ben or Tom, can you just make sure that we pick up the chat panel? We'll put a link out to everybody that said that we could email them after this with the questions that we didn't get to. We'll put them onto the website and put some answers up in the next week or so, because I know there's been some great discussion there. The final thing I want to say is this something that people want to do? We want to vary the panels and have different people along, but is this something that is of value to us? Perhaps let us know separately, but or maybe just put your thumb up now if you to the camera if you do want it. Okay, we're getting a few. Great. Okay, super. Well, look, we really appreciate you all joining, and I'm just sorry we didn't get to spend longer. We need 2 hours next time, Ben. But thank you. Thanks for joining, everyone, and good to see you all. See you all soon.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.